Hello, lacrosse friends. Welcome once again to Inside the World of Box Lacrosse with Adam Levy and Greg Beecher. I am Steven Stamp, and we're very excited to be back and be live, and we're excited to be appearing on Inside Lacrosse YouTube channel, and we're going to be spreading the word of box lacrosse, and it's a very exciting week. We're going to start looking back at a very exciting week of games, Adam. A whole lot of comebacks and surprises, and wow, what a weekend. Where do you want to start?
Well, it's hard to think about where to start, but I think obviously, or not obviously, but I think one of the games that we can definitely start with is Rochester-Halifax, because boy, were there a ton of goals in that game. A heartbreaker for Rochester, especially now going into Halifax this weekend. But what a game that was.
37 goals, a 19-18 game, and just all kinds of cool stuff happening. You had the Hutchie versus Hutchie face off at the beginning with, or not face off, but the goaltenders facing each other. Riley Hutchcraft for Rochester, Drew Hutchison for Halifax. That didn't last the whole way through as Kevin Orleman came in for Rochester. And I was a little surprised that they didn't go back to Hutchison or to Hutchcraft at one point. What about you?
Well, I think that Orleman has proven himself. He did so in the game that he replaced Hutchcraft. I was at that game, and I'm forgetting who they were playing now. Saskatchewan, when he came in and almost helped them get back into the win column. So they have a lot of faith in him. But I think that I agree with you that if you've got your guy, if he's been given a little bit of a break, I think that you can throw him back in. I also just want to say I will take a little bit of the blame, the announcer's curse. I know that Brendan McDaniels had mentioned my Drew Hutchison stat about how he had saved 17 of 17 shots on goal. And then he went on to let in 3 of the next 5. So I will take the blame for passing that along.
Yeah, Hutchison stopped all 12 of his the shots he faced the week before when he came in the comeback over Albany, right?
Yeah.
And then the first 5 in the game against Rochester, and then things took a decided turn sideways. Kevin Orleman has like a 688 save percentage, by the way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like he's popping off with an 800 save percentage so I don't know. He's 37 goals. I guess we shouldn't focus on the goalies. Let's focus on the offenses, on some of the highlights, some amazing plays. Yeah. And you just see a guy, Connor Fields, scoring. And I don't know if we've talked about this, but I think Connor Fields he was in the MVP discussion last year. I think he is so much better for that team now because he is so involved. You can see we have mentioned before. Last year, you could see he's decided I've got to shoot. Now he is always looking. He's got that almost Sean Evans, like there's always going to be somebody open. I've got Lanchbury, I've got Waters, I've got Smith, I've got McConvey, all these guys tonight. And he is just integrating himself so well in the offense, and he still gets all those loose balls.
Yeah, and I think that, that might even have come a little bit from the fact that he was shooting so often in the early parts of the season and the ball wasn't finding the back of the net. And we know how capable he is as a all-around player. So it's good that he can kind of fall back upon that skill because it does help that Rochester offense flow.
And what about the end of the game? Obviously, a huge deal. The shot from Clark Peterson that goes in live, I thought that's late. That's not in time. We're going to overtime. They do the review. It was called a goal on the floor, and after the review, they come out and say inconclusive because it was impossible to tell. Watching, the view with the shot clock showing, but the ball's a blur coming across.
Yeah.
How do you tell? And from behind, how do you tell whether the ball was in time? I don't think you can.
I think it was a good inconclusive call because I had even posted a picture on Twitter and the ball, it was going so fast that you couldn't tell where the ball actually was in a freeze frame. You could see it here in the replay. It's so unclear. And so if it was called a goal on the floor, then you got to give it a goal. If it was not a goal, then, it's up to what the referees had originally said. And I think that was kind of a trend of what we saw throughout the weekend in the National Lacrosse League.
What's your gut say? Goal, no goal?
I think it's a goal.
I think so too after watching it a lot, but my initial reaction was no goal, and I do go back and forth a little bit. I love how they put 1/10 of a second back up on the clock to have a face-off, like Rochester wants to go in for that face-off.
Exactly. But I do think that based on what we saw in that one image, I think there's more evidence to say that it probably was more over than it wasn't.
Yeah.
I know it has to be fully across the goal line, but I think that there's more reason to suggest that it was over. But man, what a game that was. But like I said, what a heartbreaker for Rochester, who was really in need of a big win, especially on their home floor.
Speaking of heartbreakers, Albany goes up 8-1, and then wow, just a crazy game with Colorado coming back. Lots of credit to Colorado for that comeback, but boy, that's a tough one for Albany. Who, when you look at it, the number of players they're missing with Colton Watkinson going down, they had Callum Crawford was hurt. Watkinson and Crawford both, I guess, game time decisions. They were scratches. You've got John Wagner out. You've got Jackson Nishimura out. You've got Glenn Clark was saying he had to sign guys this week to have people to be healthy scratches. They didn't have anybody left on the practice roster. Jackson Raposo was playing, and I thought looked like a new player, looked kind of nervous. He's good, but he's going to, like young players, take some time. They've got Cam Pelon. It's the only guy in the practice squad. He's a goalie. They don't need a goalie. So they've signed Carson Moyer, and we're going to get on to the trade later in a different section, but what a crusher.
Yeah, and also now, as of yesterday, Colton Watkinson back on the injured reserve list for Albany. So another tough one for them. Their defense really needs some help back there. The trade, obviously, a very interesting one. Sorry, that's my lovely dog in the background.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that Albany, it was one of those things actually in that game, just quickly, where I was thinking to myself, and I know I had texted you about San Diego goals in the Vancouver game, and I knew at that point, I had a feeling that Vancouver was going to come away and win that one, and San Diego was going to be snake bitten again. I just had that feeling when Colorado was back, was down by 6 or 7. I was like, this just feels like one of those vintage Colorado comebacks, and it happened. It's sometimes you get that sixth sense, and it really felt like, especially in the Loud House, that was just meant to be.
It's funny because I texted somebody as well that we're chatting about the game and how the comeback and everything. I said, at some point it just starts to feel inevitable.
Yeah,
it felt like it was going to happen, which is so strange when the team's had a lead. But Albany has had some tough breaks, obviously the injuries and some of their own doing, the demise of some of their own doing, just not making the plays they want to play. What about, you talk about that Vancouver-San Diego game. Vancouver, a team that hasn't played a ton, haven't got a lot of attention, but boy, they're interesting, and that is, I think, a very good club.
I think they're great. I actually got to speak with Aiden Walsh this week, and he is so happy and proud of the defensive effort from all the guys in front of him, making it easy. He particularly has been extremely excited about the work he's been doing with Vancouver Warriors goalie coach Tyler Richards, who they have a great relationship, and according to Walsh, has helped him move forward in his career a ton. But Walsh definitely really one of those guys like you said, he hasn't played very often. The team hasn't played very often, but he really needs to be in that top 3 of goalie finalists for the year, in my opinion, because he's making the saves. And I think you had said it last time, I think it was Walsh, where he's making enough of the saves now that you didn't expect him to make, and he's really delivering.
He played so well last year, and again, he's young goalies, Chris Origlieri, those guys. You're like, okay, you had a great stretch. The league's going to adjust. How do you adjust back? And Walsh so far doing quite well. You're foreshadowing again, as we're going to have an award section looking at a third of the way through the season, the awards. Any other games from last week that you want to go over, Adam? Buffalo.
Yeah, Toronto Buffalo.
Good.
I mean, just a little bit. Probably, I mean, it was definitely the game of the year so far, but I don't remember a game that had so much action in a regular season game, especially this early into a regular season that this one had. It was incredible. It had the physicality and edge of the rivalry that you want between these two clubs. Toronto, unfortunately, again, and I know I had even tweeted a couple pictures about it, they've gotten some calls to go against them in 3 games in a row now that I'm not saying 2 of them definitely cost them games, but this last one, in the Kyle Buchanan not being called in the crease was definitely a backbreaker when they were on the power play.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and you tweeted that picture out, and it's so hard. Even from that, I think you're probably right. I think he was probably in the crease, but I don't know that it's is it conclusive.
Well, that's why I zoom all the way in, Stamper, so you get the pixelated image, and then
I
it.
know it gets a little crazy. I like somebody replied to one of yours, and it was just a black image.
Yeah.
And it was just like I said, I don't know, I can't quite see. Can you zoom in closer? Pretty funny. So it's a fair point, but what a game! And Toronto battling and battling, and boy,
Mhm.
I know it's a kind of a low bar, but that's got to be the best 0-5 team in NLL history.
Yeah, I mean, really, we've talked about how Albany really could have been a 4-0 team. Well, Toronto, with the way things have looked the last 3 games, they could easily have won all 3 of those games had certain things gone different ways. So, definitely heartbreaking, and I can only imagine what the mood is like in that locker room with this start.
Oh, I mean, I know they believe, but it is a tough one when you just keep losing. I think we're gonna wrap up the review section of this because we have so much more to come. We're going to do our predictions for next week, and there's 8 games. We have a trade section. We talk about the 2 trades that happened in the last couple of days, and we're looking at an awards section with the 5 kind of key awards. So that will wrap up this section. We're going to have a quick commercial break. For Greg Beecher and Adam Levy, I'm Steven Stamp. Thanks for being with us here on Blue Squatch Productions and Inside the Cross.
Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate all the support. If you'd like to be able to comment and talk with Steven Stamp and Adam Levy during these live shows, join the Blue Squatch Productions membership on YouTube. This allows you the opportunity to comment during the live shows and access to our Discord where you can ask questions ahead of time and get real-time responses. Thanks so much, everybody.